Hi, this is Larry Brooks. We are going to talk about the engine relocation kit available through Dr. D, and we are going to install it on our Yamaha 450 that we're building. The engine relocation kit, if you don't know much about it, it's actually a very simple kit. It's the inserts on the back of the engine, and we are going to move our engine, the complete engine, forward 1.5 millimeters. Now that doesn't sound like a lot to you, I know, but moving that much mass and rotating mass, because the crank's rotating, the piston's moving down, moving all that moving mass forward in the engine, in the chassis, is going to make a difference in the feel of the motorcycle. What we're trying to achieve here is to put more traction towards the front of the bike and have the front tire get a bit more traction in turning and more of a positive feel. It gives the bike a more trackable feel going into the corners. So the tire is planted more firmly. I mean, it's not a huge difference, but it's something that you can feel, and it's something that in some instances is a more positive feel. And I think that this is going to be something that's going to add huge benefits to our Yamaha 450. So let's get down to the shop and get to the install. Now we're going to install the Dr. D relocation kit, moving the engine 1.5 millimeters forward. It's a very small change, but like I said earlier, small changes in this area, the rider will be able to feel, most riders will be able to feel the difference. Let's talk to Doug and let's talk to him a little bit, ask him why he made this change and the feeling that he got when he did test it.
So Larry, what we discovered is some of the faster riders, more aggressive riders, they want that more bite on the front tire. So by moving that engine forward, just 1.5 millimeters, not very far, but again, it's placement, it's distribution of the weight. And so what we found through testing is, we've seen a lot of the race teams doing similar stuff, some forward, not as much. And so with this kit that we're going to install now, we've got a nice amount of front wheel bite, and for those aggressive riders in the entrance of the corner.
Trying to get more traction on the front tire. I think with this relocation kit, I think you can achieve that. In some cases, you don't need it, but in this case, I think for the rider level and the feel that we want to get from this motorcycle, this is a really great product and a good change for the bike.
Okay, so to put an engine relocation kit in, what we're basically doing is taking the collars that this swing arm pivot passes through the engine, and we're going to replace them with offset collars. So we're going to take the whole swing arm, wheel assembly, break everything off in one piece. So starting on this side, before you remove this bolt, you've got to get this little safety clip out from behind there. You don't know how many people have pulled that bolt out and dragged that clip through and destroyed everything back there, all the threads and everything. So we're going to remove the pedal and the master cylinder off the frame, so that whole assembly is just going to stay with the swing arm once we remove the swing arm pivot. The reason we're doing this side first is so when we go to take the pivot out, we don't have that break in the way. And the only reason we're really removing this is because it saves us from having to take the rear wheel off. We just leave that whole assembly attached to the swing arm. And then this whole brake assembly will just come right off with the swing arm. Okay, we're going to remove these two bolts, the bottom shock bolt and this linkage bolt. This part will stay on the frame, and this will come away with the swing arm. So now on this side, we're going to take the chain and swing arm pivot out, and then we'll be able to take this whole assembly out in one piece. So everybody removes a master link a little bit differently. I do it with pliers. Okay, so I'm going to take the same punch we're going to use to knock our collars out, and I'm just going to flip it around here and just lightly tap this pivot out. Drop that washer out of the way, and we're just going to... So now, just with a little bit of movement here, we got our handy-dandy Larry on the other side. So now this whole assembly comes right out. So now we're going to take our small punch and we're going to go right through the pivot, and we're going to just feel it hook on the back of that collar. So now what we're going to do is we're going to remove this 3-bolt plate, the lower 3-bolt plate, completely, and we're just going to loosen these 3. Then we're also going to remove the center bottom engine mount bolt. So now we're ready to install the collars. You want to make sure that the thinnest part is towards the rear, because when this pivot goes through, we're moving the engine forward. So you'll use these lines on here as your reference. This is basically a vertical and a horizontal line. So you can see that I've already started this one in, and I've got my reference point. And now I'm going to take a fairly flat, large punch to come through here and hit this in the different locations. Okay, so you're going to want to make sure you stay away from this edge. You don't want to mushroom in that hole, so you want to be striking it back here away from that edge so that you're driving it in without getting too close to that. And the tone will change when it's finally bottomed out. It'll go from a little bit of a tinny sound to more of a dead sound. That's how you know it's bottomed out all the way. Okay, so now with the pivot coming through, we're going to take and slide the other collar on, and you'll see that it'll find its own way once you get it right in the right location. So this is effectively clocking the other side. So you can see as we turn it away, that's not lined up. As we turn it too far above, that's not lined up. So you can see about the same place as the other side. When these lines are lined up, then it should drop in. There we go. Now we'll take and get the other punch, and then we'll just do the same thing we did on the other side. We'll just slowly bring this in. So now we'll take and we'll tap the pivot back out. You got it. Okay, so now we've got our collar set. Now we're going to take and we're going to put the swing arm back on. Slide it up in there. Make sure that you've got your alignment set. And then as you're coming across the engine, since it's basically hanging there, we're going to need to get underneath the engine and just try to lift it up a little bit so we can start to get this all to realign. There we go. And as you're coming in, just be very patient. Everything jiggle a little, and just because you're trying to line up, you know, a few things. So when you're getting down to the end for this thing, getting ready to engage into the frame, got to make sure you line up these flats. So just a little bit more. You're being a little bit careful here, and you're getting that pivot to where it's lined up on the other side. push it the rest of the way in. Hear how that sound changes, you know it's all the way in.
Put the nut back on the swing arm pivot. Don't forget to replace the washer.
Okay, we're not going to tighten that just yet.
I just snugged it.
Okay, so now what we're going to do is with something, a tire iron, or we have a screwdriver here, we're just going to lift this and make sure that this bolt goes in. Sometimes you have to file it, sometimes you don't with production tolerance, but you do want to make sure that that goes through freely. You don't want to be driving that in there. So that's how you don't want to have to hammer that bolt in. So now that we've got all the bolts back in place, we're going to start our tightening sequence. So we want to start with the swing arm pivot, then go to the bottom bolt here, this 3 bolts, and then these top 3 bolts. Always refer to your owner's manual for the torque spec. Okay, once you've got your engine completely tight, we're going to reassemble what we took apart in the beginning. So we've got your linkage here, you've got your bottom shock bolt, and then your brake assembly. And one thing I want to mention is make sure you put that little pin in the back of that brake pivot. Make sure your spring is attached to your brake. You're going to put your bottom shock bolt back in. Once that's installed, bring your linkage back up, get that bolt in. Make sure you torque those to the factory spec. On the other side, you'll put your chain back on. And you're going to need to make a chain adjustment because we've now moved the engine forward slightly. So refer to your owner's manual for chain adjustment. Once you get that chain locked down, then you're ready to go.
So we finished putting the engine relocation kit in. We want to thank Doug for coming by and helping us and showing us a couple of his tricks and an easier way to do it, the simplest way to install it. Thanks, Doug, for coming by. I appreciate it.
Well, thanks for having me, Larry. Hopefully this video will help you. You know, it's always a little easier to see it done than to read through a set of instructions. So hopefully this has been helpful, and you'll get your bike up and going and faster lap times.
Don't forget, there are 3 ways that you can order here at Chaparral. You can call our 800 number, which is 800-841-2960. Go to our website, chapmoto.com, or just come on into our store and you'll be able to order whatever you need.